Hello everyone, and this is a new episode of CEO Talks. Today we have with us Mr. Dimitrios Dosis, President Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa for Mastercard. Hello, and thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thanks for having us here today.
It's great timing to have this interview, especially with everything we've seen in MENA region when it comes to digital payments and the rise and the gaining popularity of digital payments in the region. If you want to list a couple of key factors that are driving this growth, what would these factors be?
Sure. So listen, I think that the region here, MENA, is really at the front seat when it comes to digital payments, right? For me, first, it's the relevance. I mean, look at how many people are using electronic payments today. In Saudi Arabia alone, 70% of all spend is being done through electronic payments. So that's one. The other one is size. I mean, the e-commerce sector in MENA is roughly $50 billion. So we're talking about a really big sector, right? And then last but not least, I would also call out the ability for this region to leapfrog in the digital economy. That's actually quite important. Think about acceptance when you go to a shop to pay. Traditionally in this region, we didn't had a lot of acceptance. In my home country in Germany, they had acceptance, but today they're still using those very old, bulky POS devices. Whereas here, the region actually leapfrog technology. They are now using QR codes a lot. They were the first globally to implement QR codes at point of sale. So that's very powerful. Now, what's driving this, you ask me, right? I think there's one thing, May, that's driving this, which is the consumer. The consumer in this region is particularly curious. They want to try things out. I mean, we have 85% of people in this region have tried out at least one new development payment in the last 18 months. So they really want to try things out. Now you have this curious consumer paired with choice. So you give that curious consumer, you give her, for example, a way to authenticate herself, either with OTP or with biometrics, or you give a choice on how to get a credit through a regular credit line or through a buy now, pay later facility. So this curious consumer paired with choice that we see in the marketplace, that's very powerful.
And I think this curious consumer also has to do with demographics. We have young demographics in the region, and I think this is another supporting factor to this curiosity of trying things that are new. Let's talk about Mastercard, and you have been a key player in digital transformation, and especially when we see about your initiatives globally. Can you tell us a little bit about more?
Sure. Listen, when we drive and we think about digital transformation, I think co-creation with partners, that's the name of the game. Let me put some color to it. In the financial services industry, for example, we signed a landmark agreement with First Abu Dhabi Bank earlier this year. And it's really about developing some new, actually pretty disruptive payment solutions that the consumer can use. Actually, we're giving the consumer even more choice. That's very good. And we're using some of our latest technologies to get this done. In the telco sector, we have really forged some very strong partnership with players like MTN and Airtel. And together, we are trying to drive a common theme, which is interoperability of the e-wallets. Think about you as a consumer from the UAE going on vacation to Cape Town, and you want to use your e-wallet at a store that only accepts MTN payments. You know what? You have a problem. So driving interoperability, this is something that we're co-creating with telcos on. And then we're doing the same thing with governments. Governments in this region have been very keen to also develop and deploy domestic payment solutions. And we are working with some of them, like, for example, the Saudi central banks and Saudi payments. We have developed the first instant payment system in Saudi Arabia, SARI. And with Egypt, for example, we have developed a payment solution for the new capital city in Egypt and making it the first smart city in Egypt.
That's very interesting. And another trend that we are seeing globally and specifically in GCC is fintech.
Yeah.
And I have to ask about Mastercard's role in driving fintech in the region.
That's an interesting one, May, because if you think about fintech, if we take a step back, these are not some small little companies that are doing some form of experimentation. We're talking in this region about 800 fintechs with an estimated valuation of roughly $20 billion. So this is a material constituent in this economy. It's not a hobby, okay? Which means that we as Mastercard, we believe those fintechs have three needs. The first one is they need expertise. Second, they need some form of reach, some form of a network distribution. And thirdly, they need some form of resourcing. And these are the things we're focusing on. We're providing them with access to our experts, access to our global technology. They are benefiting from our footprint we have globally, and very selectively, we're also providing them with resourcing. We have established our Start Path program globally a few years ago, and so far we have helped over 380 fintechs globally, around 50 countries, making sure that we bring them up to speed.
And I think another part of the technology around fintech is AI. Yes. And AI is disrupting almost every industry around the globe. And especially when it comes to fintech, to the financial industry, we are seeing that AI is being used not only in cybersecurity and to protect consumers, but also to come up with new products and services. Do you at Mastercard, how do you actually leverage AI to make sure that you are protecting your clients, and what kind of growth opportunity do you see can be leveraged from AI?
Now, AI, I mean, isn't it on everybody's mind today, May?
Yes.
Now, I remember a few years back, we started talking about data as the new oil, right? And if data is the new oil, well, you know what? Then AI is the new electricity. It's the new electricity powering many of our solutions, okay? So we at Mastercard, we have been using that form of electricity for some years now. Let me give you a few examples. Our safety and security solutions. In 2023 alone, AI, which we have embedded in our safety net solution, has protected the ecosystem of $20 billion in fraud. That's a lot. We would not have done it without empowering our solutions with AI. Also, if banks today, they want to authenticate real-time the consumer, you know, it's very telling. You take your device, the way you're holding your device, the way you are putting in your credentials, it's very telling who you are.
Yes.
So we can say now very easy, is it May who's doing the transaction, or is it somebody who's pretending to be May to doing the transaction? So this is one big area of focus when it comes to AI, safety and security. The other area is very much around loyalty and personalization. You don't want to be bombarded as a consumer with hundreds of ads every day, right?
That are not relevant to my
needs. That are not relevant, exactly. But I think you would actually be open to get a few specific ones which are reflecting what you need as May, and that you have actually consented to. So that's the other area. Now, listen, we have really invested a lot, especially in this region. Last year, we really wanted to double down on AI. So we have created, together with the UAE government, our first ever global AI Center of Excellence here in Dubai, here in the region, serving not only the region, but also globally. Now, very important to mention, May, the underlying factor to make this whole AI work and really unleash the power. It is being very disciplined when it comes to AI governance, making sure that we don't have AI biases in our system. That's number one. And the other one is having the right data rights, data protection. It's very important. When it comes to data, we as Mastercard believe that you consumer, you own your data, you control your data, you should benefit from your data. We keep it secure. You own it, you control it, you benefit, we keep it secure. I think this is really fundamental.
So let's talk about SMEs. And SMEs are really a big chunk of the economy here in the Middle East or in GCC overall. And I think a lot of businesses now are trying to come up with new initiatives to support the SME community. What's Mastercard's role in all of this, in the SME community?
I think you're perfectly right. SME is actually the lifeblood of the economy here in MENA. 96% of all registered companies in the UAE are SMEs. They employ over 50% of employment is happening through SME in this country. So it's material. Now, when it comes to SME, we have a very clear commitment. We want to include 50 million SMEs in the digital ecosystem by 2025. And we're actually on a good way there. Now, but that's only the beginning. Financially including SMEs is only the beginning. Now we need to add tangible value to that. And I think we are still at the beginning of that journey. We still have runway. Let me give you two examples. The first one is around access to credit. For SMEs, it has been traditionally very difficult to get credit because banks and financial institutions don't really know them so well. So yes, having digital means of payments allowing actually the bank to have a better view on the consumer. For example, how many customers are recurring coming into a shop? We can provide this type of data, payments data, to the bank so they can actually score the SME better and provide them a credit line.
You're supporting access to finances when it comes to SME with this data.
Exactly, that's what we're doing. So that's one example. The other one is around getting paid. A lot of suppliers here in MENA are SMEs. And sometimes they need to wait 2 or 3 months until they get their money. Having payment rails that we are providing into the market is allowing to cut down the payment cycle to a few days only. So this is some of the tangible value that we can and should provide even more to SMEs.
So if you look at the landscape around us today, whether the economic landscape, the financial landscape, what are the factors that you are watching in this environment that you think that it's going to impact Mastercard operations?
Listen, I think there are multiple. If you see what will define the digital ecosystem 5 to 7 years from now, I would say are two big trends. The first one is the fact, how do we define, how would you look at money? I think it will expand. We'll see much more definition around crypto tokens, to give a couple of examples. I think that's the one big trend. The other thing we'll see, May, is around the convergence between the physical and the virtual world, and also the customer experiences. E-gaming is a great example. For example, the esports business in MENA, we're talking about $2.7 billion by 2027. So it's a really big part of the economy already, and it's exponentially growing. We are working very closely with the Saudi Esports Federation to drive this and to make sure that we co-create actually joint experiences. I think that's important. What's also very critical in this space is, however, trust. I would say trust is the main factor which is underpinning all of it. Understanding that I'm interacting face-to-face with May. Is it May when it's online? Understanding who my counterpart on the business side is. So a lot of investments that we are putting into the industry is about co-creating with governments, merchants, and actually retailers new solutions on trust.
Yes, and especially that this question wouldn't have been raised, I think, 10 or 20 years ago. But with AI and all the technology advancement, now you always have to be suspicious. You always have to ask the question, is it really the person who I'm talking to? And to what extent am I being financially exposed if it's not the reality of the person that I think he is? And I think this is the negative side of technology and the negative side of AI. So it's really important that you mentioned the word trust in each of these transactions. Thank you so much for being with us here today in CEO Talks. Mr. Dimitrios Dosis, President, Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa for Mastercard.
Thank you for having me.
And with this, we come to the end of this episode of CEO Talks. Goodbye.